Now that you have a high-level periodization plan established, either in the Training Peaks ATP or in your own notes, you can get into the weekly and daily planning for your athlete. At this point, it's worth taking a moment to consciously define your planning process. This will save you time and make you more efficient in the long run, and will determine how you build and name workouts and manage your time for other parts of your coaching. There are two general things to keep in mind for being efficient in your planning as we go through this process. First, you want to avoid redoing work that you've already done. And second, you want to avoid undoing work that you've already done. If you find yourself building the same workout from scratch several times, you are redoing work, and you should just spend some time to make that workout complete and detailed and save it to your library. If you plan a week for an athlete haphazardly without taking a moment to orient yourself, you may accidentally plan a workout on a day that athlete can't train, or only realize later that they left a comment that they're feeling sick, and you'll have to undo everything that you just did. We'll go over a quick and simple example of what I mean by planning process that ties together the ATP and workouts on the Training Peaks calendar. I'll be using workouts that already exist in my library, but then we'll get into the specifics of actually creating good reusable workouts in Training Peaks, organizing and using workout libraries, some other tips and tricks of the Training Peaks calendar, and a brief introduction to static training plan templates. This basic planning process is 4 steps and is probably similar to how you already plan, even if you haven't thought specifically about it. Your process may end up being different, but this is just a general starting point. Step 1 is to determine the weekly volume. After that, you set the important workouts for the week. Then you complete the rest of the week, and then you check and adjust as needed. The first step, determining volume, is where having an ATP already established and your weekly summary layout configured to display ATP information becomes useful. You may eventually have 20 to 30 athletes all at different points in their season, and it can be disorienting or time-consuming to need to check the ATP for every one. Here in the weekly summary, you can immediately see the weekly volume planned for this athlete from the ATP, as well as the training period or focus to remind you of what type of workouts you should be planning. If you aren't using an ATP for this athlete at this time, then it may be a good idea to plan a few weeks training focus and approximate training volume ahead of time with a note at the beginning of each week. Next, we set the important workouts. All workouts are important, but in this case, we're referring to workouts that are the most important specific workouts for this phase of training, as well as those that will be determined by scheduling restrictions from the rest of this athlete's life. For example, if they can never train on Monday, or only have 1 hour to train every Thursday, or always have a group swimming workout on Tuesday. First, I start with days off. You don't want to spend time planning an entire week only to remember at the end that this athlete can't train on a day that you have already planned for, and then you have to rearrange the entire week. This athlete takes the typical Monday rest day, so I'm going to place that workout there. Next, I place the high volume workouts, so that you can see how much available time you have left to work with after those are in place. This athlete has the most time on the weekends, so I'll put the 2 longer endurance rides on Saturday and Sunday. We are in a build phase, so we're starting to add some intensity, so then I'll plan 2 important structured workouts a few days apart. At this point, we have covered most of the important things for the week. We've accounted for the athlete's availability and added the most important workouts for this phase. Now we can move on to filling out the rest of the week as needed. These shouldn't be throwaway or filler workouts just to hit a volume number. This is where you can add social workouts, skills rides, recovery workouts, or even commuting rides. This is also a good time to add non-endurance sports workouts like strength, yoga, flexibility, core, or foam rolling. Finally, you can check your week against your original plan. Back in the weekly summary, you can see that I've planned a total of 10 hours and 35 minutes. Compared to just over 11 hours I had originally planned in the ATP several months ago. In this case, I'm going to say that this is close enough. It wouldn't be worth the time to go adjust a few workouts by just a few minutes each. You can decide how close is close enough for you and your individual athletes. Now that you have a planning process in place in the back of your mind, we can look at actually creating the workouts that you will use in this process.